Dios los acompañe en nombre del Padre, del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo. Buen viaje.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough, and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomen. Monday, only on Telesur.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con Reportajes Telesur.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dot in the eye. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The government of Guatemala has said that it has received communication from Mexico saying that the border will be completely closed and that the migrant caravan will not be able to pass. The caravan, which set out from Honduras towards the United States on Wednesday, is already in Guatemala, where they were met by police and tear gas. The majority of the migrants are young people, dozens of whom have received food and water at the Casa de la Migrante in the Guatemalan capital. Many had already gone 12 hours without eating by the time they arrived. A reported 2,000 migrants have been walking north since early Wednesday morning in hopes of reaching the United States. We have more from Honduras with our correspondent Gilda Silvestrucci.
The Honduran migrant caravan is continuing on its path, and many have been able to pass through the Ocotepeque customs at the Agua Caliente border. They're now on Guatemalan soil. However, there were some initial obstacles. Nevertheless, they were able to cross through this area during early morning hours. Many children were held back as police are requiring the due permits for exiting the country. At that location, we haven't seen police repression today as we witnessed yesterday at another border crossing where migrants saw repression coming from both the police and the military. From Ocotepeque, they'll be heading to hostels. At least the women who are traveling with children, they'll be in search of food, of diapers, and other items that will help them facilitate this long journey, which began overnight on Tuesday into Wednesday, and which began the metropolitan central of San Pedro Sula in the north of Honduras.
Indigenous people from across Brazil came together on Wednesday to oppose what they say is the destruction of the Amazon rainforest at the hands of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. Close to 500 members of 47 tribes met to discuss how to resist Bolsonaro's attempts at reducing their land and allowing business interests to have free rein over the Amazon. Another topic of discussion was the rise in violence against indigenous communities due to land conflicts with farmers and illegal miners and loggers who have made their way inside protected lands.
We are going through a very grave moment in our history. It feels like a war. The criminalization of our leaders, the assassination of indigenous people, the increasing violence due to land conflicts, illegal logging, illegal mining, This is happening as if it were nothing. In this great meeting, attended by various indigenous leaders from across Brazil, we are here to make a pact saying we're not going to accept negotiations for our lands.
Chilean President Sebastián Piñera said on Wednesday he plans to send a bill to Congress to reform the country's pension system. This comes in response to months of massive anti-government protests that condemn Chile's neoliberal system and demand the drafting of a new constitution.
We are going to take to Congress a bill that improves the pensions of all Chilean pensioners, current and future, and especially the pensions of women, the middle class and older adults who need significant help.
In his latest illegal act, Venezuelan opposition figure Juan Guaidó has named a commission to allegedly recover and restructure Telesur. Let's take a look at the people he chose to lead this latest grasp at power.
In the 1980s in El Salvador, the dictatorship of Napoleon Duarte forcibly took power. The country was in the midst of a civil war when in the so-called Centaur operation, a number of Jesuit priests were murdered by security forces for allegedly working with a guerrilla group. Death squads killed Monsignor Oscar Arnulfo Romero, known as the Bishop of the Poor. Years later, an investigation by the United States Senate in 1991, published by Reuters journalist Dan Williams, named one of the CIA collaborators in El Salvador who helped the death squads find their targets. It was Leopoldo Castillo, the then Venezuelan ambassador in El Salvador. Since then, Castillo has been known as the priest killer.
Consistía en la identificación de las víctimas.
33 years ago, with the help of Leopoldo Castillo, they killed a number of priests in El Salvador. That is the latest appointment made by Juan Nobody.
It's Leopoldo Castillo, the human rights violator linked to the murder of priests by the U.S. government, who has been named by the self-proclaimed himself, Juan Guaidó, as the new president of Telesur. The latest strategy of his international media circus, hoping to convince his audience that he holds any sort of power in Venezuela.
Why don't you talk to one of the guards? Show at least a little moral standing, at least some leadership.
Juan
Guaidó represents a powerful sector in this hybrid war. Venezuela has been attacked on all fronts with the hopes of destroying our government. Juan Guaidó has given himself an important role by calling himself and his followers the only legitimate power in Venezuela. He has embodied the hybrid war. He has zero legitimacy. The whole show is just a strategy to destabilize the nation and to facilitate a foreign invasion or the implosion of our democratic system.
Another one of the feats of Leopoldo Castillo came on May 3, 2017, a year when the terrorist acts of the opposition were losing steam. In a tweet, Castillo confirmed the death of Leopoldo López, a former opposition leader who was under arrest for leading a terrorist plot that sought to overthrow President Nicolás Maduro in 2014 and killed over 40 citizens. But Castillo's lie was quickly ended, and his ethics were questioned across the board.
This is a message to my family, to prove I am alive. Today is May the 3rd. It's 9 p.m. This is a message to my wife, Lilian. I don't understand why they are asking me to prove I'm still alive right now.
Larissa Patiño was also named as a leader of the team that hopes to kidnap Telesur. For 17 years, she was at the head of the RCTV news outlet, an opposition beacon during the administration of Hugo Chávez. She was also a leader of the First Justice Party, which has long asked for and defended economic sanctions against Venezuela.
Somos Telesur.
Telesur was created by commanders Hugo Chávez Frías and Fidel Castro. For over 14 years, it has become the most important platform to tell the stories of Latin American people and their struggles. Telesur's flag is the truth.
Sería impensable.
The creation of Telesur will be hard to imagine in today's world. But if it wasn't for Telesur, we wouldn't have known about the 2009 coup in Honduras. Thanks to Telesur, we found out the truth about Syria. We have learned of the struggles of indigenous people and Afro-descendants in Latin America and the Caribbean, and not to mention the fight for women's rights.
Those behind this latest attack are wrong. Telesur is part of our culture, is part of our people's heritage, and it will only grow larger in the face of these attacks.
Más de 34,5 millones de visitas en nuestro sitio web y redes sociales nos convierten en referencia informativa en inglés y español a nivel mundial.
Our North is the South. That's Telesur's slogan. And just as the legitimate president of the network, Patricia Villegas, says, Telesur is unique and unbreakable, made up of one-of-a-kind people and watched by extraordinary viewers worldwide.
We'll take a short break now. Join us in a minute. Welcome back. Bolivia's Senate has approved a bill to extend the mandate of Janine Áñez. With 6 days before the constitutional term is to expire for legitimate president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, and thus the de facto coup regime, 2/3 of the body passed the emergency extension. The exceptional law for the extension of the constitutional mandate of elected authorities will apply to Áñez, even though she hails from a small party and was never elected as president. Protests are still set for Wednesday, January 22nd. El Salvador is marking 28 years since the signing of the 1992 peace agreement. Our correspondent Ernesto Abalos reports from San Salvador.
It's the 28th anniversary of the 1992 peace agreement signed in Chapultepec, Mexico, which ended 12 years of war that left more than 75,000 dead or missing. Social organizations, human rights defenders and relatives of the victims are asking the Legislative Assembly to form a commission to create a national reconciliation bill. They want the law to help the victims as opposed to those accused of committing crimes against humanity, war crimes and massacres.
The head of Russia's tax service, Mikhail Mishustin, has been approved as the new prime minister. President Vladimir Putin nominated Mishustin for the post on Wednesday. This after the entire government resigned following his proposal for a referendum to amend the constitution. Addressing lawmakers, Mishustin said his government would be open to constructive criticism.
As the president has stressed several times, people should already now be feeling real changes for the better. So far, this is happening far from everywhere. I believe that the government must always assume its responsibilities. Open constructive criticism always helps us to work better.
Shifting gears now, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says he is open to dialogue with the world amid high tensions with the United States. President Rouhani stressed that Tehran was working daily to prevent military confrontation or war. Washington provoked Iran to respond after it killed the country's top military commander, Qasem Soleimani, on January 3rd. Tehran retaliated by launching missiles at an Iraqi base housing U.S. military. The Middle Eastern nation said the score would be settled once all U.S. troops are expelled from the region.
With all our resources and power, we work every day. And I'm sure that every leader is in agreement about this. We all want security. No one wants insecurity. What I want to tell the people of Iran is that there is no one day that the government, and myself as its representative, is not thinking of the foreign relations of this country.
Israel's Defense Ministry has approved the creation of nature parks on occupied Palestinian lands in the West Bank. According to Defense Minister Naftali Bennett, the decision is part of Israeli efforts to maintain control of the area and make way for the creation of new Jewish settlements. However, the Palestinian Authority has condemned the decision and vowed to take the matter to the United Nations and the International Criminal Court. All Israeli settlement activities on occupied Palestinian land are illegal under international law. Yemen's separatist Southern Transitional Council has warned against the looming collapse of a power-sharing deal it signed with the Saudi-backed government in November 2019. Analysts have deemed the deal effectively defunct as it failed to meet deadlines for key measures, including the formation of a new cabinet with equal representation and the reorganization of military forces. The agreement was initially hailed as a step towards ending the wider conflict in Yemen that pits the government against Houthi rebels. However, the council's head is now lamenting that the region is plagued by threats of economic destabilization and Islamist attacks.
The delay in implementing the Riyadh Agreement comes from a defective part in the government, which is the Muslim Brotherhood, meaning Al-Islah Party, under the umbrella of the legitimate government. Yemen's currency is sharply depreciating, and it is possible that in the coming months we start using Saudi currency or US dollars in the south, because our currency will have no value whatsoever. This could lead to the hampering of the Riyadh Agreement.
3 African nations have started rolling out the world's first malaria vaccine. The malaria vaccine, which is being administered in Malawi, Kenya and Ghana, is a trial which is still only 40% effective. Children in Malawi have already begun receiving the vaccine to protect them against one of the world's deadliest diseases. Now, according to the World Health Organization, malaria kills almost 500,000 people, mostly in Africa, every year, and 2/3 of them children under the age of 5.
They are not actually more surprises because the way we administer malaria vaccine is the same the way we administer other vaccines. So the caregivers are not puzzled. They are not worried. They are okay with the vaccine.
Still in Malawi, thousands of people have protested against alleged bribery claims on the ongoing election challenge court case. The protests were triggered by alleged attempts to bribe judges overseeing a legal challenge to the re-election of President Peter Mutharika. 5 judges presiding over the case are alleged to have received kickbacks, a claim which is not yet proven. Opposition leaders are challenging the May 21st polls, which saw Mutharika narrowly beat runner-up candidate Lazarus Chakwera. And we'll be taking one last break, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has met with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi during his diplomatic visit to the nation. The duo discussed projects under the strategic alliance of both countries. The Venezuelan Foreign Minister also met with the Minister for International Affairs of the Communist Party, Song Tao. After his 4-day visit, Arreaza is expected to travel to Iran. In some tragic news, the death toll from days of snow and avalanches in Pakistan has climbed to 100. Search and rescue efforts continue across the country, but especially in the hardest hit Pakistani-administered region of Kashmir, where now the death toll stands at 76. Almost 100 people have been injured as the region is preparing for more snow. Authorities have cancelled all classes, while several highways and roads were closed across the country's northern mountainous region. France's longest transport strike in documented history has entered its 42nd day as the showdown over the government's proposed pension reforms continue. Roughly 4,000 people took to the streets of Saint-Nazaire after calls by the CGT union for more demonstrations. Now, according to the central bank, the protests have shaved 0.1% growth off the fourth quarter in 2019. An estimated 10% of businesses, mainly in the hotel, restaurant and transport industries, have been affected by the stoppage.
We went through a period that was difficult between Christmas and New Year's Day, when a lot of professions were on holiday, willingly or unwillingly, I was going to say. And it is clear that at the beginning of this year, there are other professions which, after the General Assemblies, decided to weaken the movement, to amplify the movement. This is applied to the ports, as you say, and it was already the case last week. But there are other sectors that are mobilized, and the determination is still as strong as ever.
And we end in Cuba, where, defying the Trump administration's growing restrictions, the island has welcomed New Orleans musicians to its annual jazz festival in Havana. The visiting musicians said they were frustrated it was so hard to reach Cuba due to recent bans on U.S. travel to the island. Around 80 U.S. musicians from 22 bands, including the Soul Rebels and Tank and the Bangas, are performing at the festival that runs until Sunday.
It's a very complicated environment right now to do anything in Cuba or with Cuba because of a lot of the restrictions on the U.S. side and a lot of confusion. So I'd say the biggest challenge is really figuring out how to help people in the U.S. understand that they can still come to Cuba and that this project is possible. And super grateful to all of the musicians and all the people from New Orleans that made this possible. I think it's a life-changing experience for a lot of people involved.
Those jazzy rhythms have brought us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.